Where do trans people fit in? I want to talk about this. So I have this article from Pink News. Let me read this real quick and then we can break it down. Be a doll, hit the like button. So Pink News says a gender critical lesbian group is continuing to push to exclude trans women, but has said, we don't hate trans people. The Victoria-based chapter of Lesbian Action Group is appealing a Human Rights Commission ruling that prevents the exclusion of trans women from its public gatherings. The LAG has argued that their events should remain exclusive to cisgender women, saying they want young and emerging lesbians to find safe spaces without biological males in attendance, despite the fact Victorian and federal law recognizes trans women as women. So right there's some right-wing terminology, biological males. In September 2023, the Victoria-based group applied to the Australian Human Rights Commission for an exemption from the Sex Discrimination Act so they could hold events for lesbians born female only, thus excluding trans and bisexual cisgender women. The Human Rights Commission ruled against this group, saying that granting an exemption could lead to the further exclusion of and discrimination against trans women. Good. So already we saw right-wing hurtful terminology, biological male. Only right-wingers describe trans women as biological males, because calling a trans woman a biological male is incorrect in that it refuses to recognize a person's current gender. Oh, conservatives just don't fucking understand this. Gender and sex at birth are two different things. And the word transgender already tells us that a person was born one gender and now identifies as another. It's completely unnecessary to add that trans women are biological males. This is hurtful, dehumanizing language that is intended to hurt the trans community. We see this transphobia, this illogical fear of trans people all over the world. So, this is in Victoria, but same thing happening in the US. And the trans community has a long history of struggling to find its place in the gay community. And I think this is attributed to the fact that uneducated people think transgender people are gay people. We see this a lot in right-wing America. Republicans who oppose trans inclusion will say things like, stop transing gay kids. They don't know the difference between homosexual and transgender. This ideology goes all the way back to the 1850s and the 1860s. Philosophers and sexologists referred to trans identity as a form of homosexuality. It wasn't until 1919 that Magnus Hirschfeld's Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin began distinguishing between sexual orientation and gender identity. In the 1900s, things shifted to people believing that trans people were just extreme versions of lesbians and gay people. And now fast forward to today, we now understand from research and living examples, actual trans people, that gender identity and sexual orientation are two separate parts of our identities. Meaning a trans person can be straight, gay, bisexual, etc., and same for a cisgender person. So personally, I am a straight identifying trans woman, meaning I'm a woman who dates men. And for a while, before I was educated on gender identity, I identified as a gay man. But I always knew inside that something about me was different than gay men. And it just took a while and some education to understand that. So even me, a trans person, didn't understand when I was younger that gender identity and sexual orientation were two different things. But after being educated on gender, on sexuality, on sexual orientations, etc., I realized I was transgender. I think America's problem is that a portion of America is stuck well into adulthood in that uneducated phase and are refusing education on this subject. So it's a willing ignorance to say that trans identity and homosexuality are the same thing. They just aren't. One is how you identify, and the other is who you're attracted to. Obviously, two very different things. Personally, I have been ingrained in gay culture since my teens, and almost all of my friends are gay men and lesbian women, and I love my community. I couldn't imagine myself without these people and these experiences in the gay community. They were the only ones in the world who seemed to understand me. There's also a history there between gay and trans people. So I have no desire to separate the LGB from the T. I also recognize that gender identity and sexuality are two different things. So within the LGBT community, there are a few LGBs that want to eliminate the T. But these, in my opinion, are very politically right-wing LGBT people, uneducated people. There are also trans people who want to be separated from the gay community. And also, in my experience on that, they have also been politically right-wing trans people that say that. So it's the left-leaning LGBTs that want to remain a group. There was also a suspicious case in Illinois recently. I covered this in a recent video, where a group of anti-trans gay people who sued Illinois for the right to use the word Democrat, because all of their claims about trans people were extremely right-wing. The Democratic Party wouldn't allow them to use the word Democrat in their group's name. And this was so suspicious to me because they use identical talking points to Donald Trump. They use detransitioners as a way to attack the trans community. Their verbiage is all the same. They refuse to use the word transgender and instead use hateful language like biological male who identifies as female. So unnecessary. That's a huge red flag to me. I think when you use biological male type language, this is a case of manufacturing by the right. These were not really Democrats. Politically, if you don't support trans rights, you shouldn't be identifying as a Democrat, because denying trans identity is denying reality. And that's a right-wing value. Conspiracy, manipulation, science denial, fantasy over fact, misinformation, disinformation, lack of education. These are all right-wing values. You just don't see things like that on the left like you do with the right. So I believe there's a larger effort by Republicans to attempt to infiltrate the Democratic Party, use the word Democrat to try and push trans people away from Democrats, but it isn't working. Something Republicans don't understand is acceptance. Once people become accepting of others, you don't care about things like other people's genders and other people's sexualities. It's just a creepy, weird thing to obsess over, and it's unique to the right. They are obsessed about what other people are doing in their bedrooms and in their pants. And it all comes back to illogical fears and being uneducated. Thank you for listening. Please like this, share it, leave your comments. I'll be back very soon with more news. Bye.